Question's got to be asked, obviously. There's been a lot of side distractions for you guys. When did you and the team find out that you would not be hosting the Super Regional?
We found out yesterday, and we talked about it a little while ago. I think the bottom line is that has kind of come and sailed, and from this point forward, we got to focus on playing a game on the road at TCU, and it is what it is at this point. So I told the team after we spoke about it in the locker room, once we left the locker room, it's over with. We're done with it. We're moving on. We're getting ready to play TCU down in Fort Worth.
Coach, how much can you just tell me about controlling that controllable? How do you focus on that and kind of lead more into like what you guys can control and what you guys got to focus on and get ready for it with this week?
Well, it's not very hard because TCU is really good. We watched a little film this morning. The guys have watched some film. I think they understand what's in front of us, regardless of where we would play them. If it's a parking lot, whatever, man, they're really, really good. They're going to force us to make some adjustments, so we got to be ready. So, in terms of controlling what we can control, we've got to understand what the scout is this week. We've got to do a good job preparing, and the guys know that.
You always say you'll go anywhere, anytime. This is certainly that, and you'll go into a hostile environment. I'm sure you say, we're going to be the underdog. How much are you playing on that with the team right now?
Well, I think it's been with us forever. It's not like we've played a ton of NCAA tournament games where our roster is a lot better than other teams. We probably have never been the favorite, so to say. But the bottom line is, regardless of where you play, you're playing somebody really good. Just like in the regional when we were home, we knew we were playing really good teams. And you gotta get good starts on the mound. You gotta pick it up defensively. You gotta play clean baseball, and you gotta have timely hitting.
Coach, what's standing out about TCU's offense? I mean, 4 straight games where they've scored 12 or more runs. I mean, what's been clicking well from what you can tell, at least on film?
Really tough outs, top to bottom. Really tough outs. Really great, really good team speed. I think the confidence piece is what stands out. They're just a really confident team right now, and that makes them arguably one of the most dangerous teams in the country.
Coach, you got a College World Series sticker out there, 1986. Any parallels you see between that team, whether it is like, what you did when you were playing out there on that team and like what you guys have done off the field? Any parallels you can give me?
I think in terms of just the two teams, not comparing guy for guy or position for position, a lot of similarities in the fact that they were tough teams that were fearless, and that's what this team's been all year. I mean, you guys know we went down the stretch about a month that we really couldn't afford to lose a game if we wanted to host a regional, and that was a lot on these guys. You like to be able to drop a game here and there, but because of the RPI and where we were at and some of the teams we were playing, even on the road, it was such a grind just to get to this backside. And it's still a grind. The last 2 weeks have been a grind. And it's a testament to these guys. I mean, that's the biggest similarity. That team in '86 could really grind. And this team has been really good at it as well.
Speaking of that grind, have they handled the extra distractions this week? Certainly, you want to keep the outside noise outside, but how have your guys responded? Because I know they hear some of the outside noise too, Coach.
Yeah, they respond well. In the old days, we could hide all that stuff. You could even make some fake stories and put them in front of them if you needed to for motivation. So they see it all, they hear it all. The only thing I've asked them is to stay away from it. Don't partake, don't jump in, don't be tweeting at people. That stuff is what it is, and we'll let the fans take care of that. We got to get ready to play on the field.
Coach, what are the biggest differences now when you go from a regional setting with 3 other teams, a Valley tournament where you have possible 7 other opponents, to now it's a best of 3?
Yeah.
Just the different strategies and other things that happen now when you're in a super regional.
I think a lot of those, Luke, will come in game. I think there's a mentality in terms of how you handle your pitching staff when you go into that bullpen, how long you try to stretch a guy, what you're seeing. I think it's just different. I think you hope to be a little shorter in terms of the number of guys you have to use. But then again, you could be in the very back of that pen. And that's something that we've talked about all year. When you start a fall in college baseball, you got to start working with the mentality that the 12th guy on your pitching roster that weekend may throw the most important innings of your season. That guy may dictate your season. It may be in his hands. So you got to do a really good job preparing every member of that staff. So we've worked hard at that so that we were prepared for that 12th guy getting out there. And if you had to say a guy that didn't have a ton of innings that's jumped on the scene that has embodied that, it's been Simon Gregerson. He didn't have nearly as many innings or appearances as some of the other guys through our regular season, but here in the tournament he's come up really big, and again that starts in the fall. So I think, Luke, we won't know until we get in there and start playing, and you get into each game is so much different, and as a coaching staff you're sitting there watching it play out, and as soon as the game starts in your mind you kind of put over here the number of runs that it's going to take to win this game, and that's sitting back here, and so you're thinking, okay, is it 7 today? Is it 5 today? Are we really getting locked down by a Brecht? And so we gotta find a way to make this a 5-4 game if we can. So all of that dictates how you handle your pitching in this series, just like it did in the series before. The only difference being it's a max of 3 games instead of maybe 5 or maybe 6 in a conference tournament. So it allows you to condense a little bit.
Does that add any weight to the role of the starting pitchers?
Yeah.
Because of the shortness of the series.
I think, I've always said you're only as good as the next start you get on the mound. I think it's really, really, really important that starters set a tone. It's much easier for that bullpen to come out on the field when you feel like you've got them a little bit on their heels. When we haven't been able to do that and they're leaning over the plate and feeling really good, it's tough for a bullpen to shut that down. And so I think from the standpoint of the starters, it's really, really important that they establish the plate.
Coach, after that first win in the Missouri Valley tournament, you told me about how different it was hosting a tournament and having the guys at home, right, for a big tournament, whether that was that tournament or the regional, just kind of different kind of aspect of doing that. Now you're going on the road for a big tournament, biggest games of the season so far to this point. What can you tell me about doing this? And is it kind of like that old school mentality where you're almost like checking beds, making sure everyone's together, lunch, coffee, whatever it is, and always doing that?
Well, we've been on the road a lot. That's kind of the way we live, so we're kind of used to it. We don't have to check beds too much. If we do, those guys are probably on a bus back home, so we don't have to worry about that. The guys know what's at hand. They know what's demanded of them. They know the task in front of us. And I think they understand all of that. So without being too bland for you, it kind of is one of those things that it's going to be a quick 3 games. It's not a drawn out. It's going to be bam, 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 and you got to get in there ready to go.
I know there's still time in between now and when the series starts, but just know this is the first time the program's in a super. You've watched supers for years. Just what will it be like to be in that moment for you, Coach, to know that Indiana State's on this stage?
That's something we'll probably reflect on when it's all said and done. I think right now we're so in the moment that it's hard really to step back and enjoy it. It's hard to get a good 8 hours. It's hard to get 3 solid meals because obviously as a coaching staff, you're always worried that you've done everything within your power to prepare your team for what they're about to go into.